What's up, boys and girls? Working on the 64 today, and I thought what a better time than working on the fuel system to show you how to assemble Earls Ultrapro hose and fittings. I'm working with some of the black fabric lined hose today. If you have stainless steel, this video will be similar. I have some stainless steel on order. I'll just do another video when that comes once I've got a best practice figured out. All this information applies to either end, doesn't really make a difference. I've got one fitting started so I can go through the details on how to best cut for length. So get one end installed and attached via the method in this video, and then work your way down to the other line. So once you've got it started and routed where you want it to go, come back around to the other part, get your approximations set up ever so slight. If you want to use tape to hold this down, it'll probably go a little smoother or a little faster. But ultimately, what you want to do is bring this down right up along the side of the hose, and as soon as these threads start right here, that's where you're going to want to cut your hose. So what I've been doing, and seems to be working fine, run your finger right up to the edge of this, as long as you don't need something so ultra precise that you're down to 1/4 of an inch or less. This is going to work just fine. Grab, pinch it there, get your knife out, let's get to cutting. I've been cutting it most of the way through and then resorting to the next step, which is scissors. Merit 97-272 stainless steel Pakistan. I got them from a military surplus store. Honestly, I really like these the best because when you open them up, you got one side with a very pointy tip, and that's going to be important for another step later in this video. So let's just finish this off. So you're going to take your hose off the car, and you're going to take this fabric and you're going to pinch it at the fitting side that you've already installed, or somewhere in the middle if you're using a long bulk of hose, and stretch it down as far and tight as you can all the way to the other end here. So we've got our nut for the other fitting, and we're going to take this black fabric, kind of dome it over to where it's got a little bit of a point on it, and then take your nut and just capture all of the ends. If you don't get every single one, it's not the end of the world. Push it on there. That mesh will flex back and pop right over, no problem. Slide that all the way down to the other end. Loosely grab the top of your mesh and take your other hand and push up on the bottom and spit that thing right out. Pull it down. Get yourself enough room to get a whole hand or a grip on that hose about yay far. Next thing you're going to do is take your olive, and you'll notice that your olive is tapered on one end, flat cut on the other. The tapered end goes on first just like this, and you're going to want to start to spin that on until you can get it to go on nice and straight. You can see here as I turn it more, it's starting to go a little crooked. Back it back off, get those threads on the inside of the olive lined up with this convolution. Nice and straight. Might take you a couple of attempts. If it's too crazy, you might flat cut it again and start over, which is what we're going to do right here. If you're struggling to get your olive on, the end of your hose is probably not flat like you see in this right here. So go back, get your razor knife, get that as flat and perpendicular as you can. That's a little better. Let's give it another shot. We'll call it round 2. There we go. That's way smoother. Now we just need to keep forcing it in and work it on. Use your fingers and grip it. If you don't have enough grip strength, it can be kind of hard. Get some pliers, wrap them in electrical tape, and then try to crank it over with that. Get about 3/16, quarter inch or so sticking out of the end of that. Take your razor knife, cut it off flush with the flat end of the olive. And you're going to be real careful. If you're not smart enough to use a knife without cutting your fingers, maybe you shouldn't be watching this channel. What I like to do is put a little bit of downward pressure on the actual aluminum. If you've got a good sharp knife like these 99-cent utilities, you're not going to nick up that aluminum at all. It's going to glide right through that poly and make a nice, clean, perfect cut. Even if you need to go back over, you can shave off little tiny slivers if your knife is sharp enough. Now we're going to go back to the other end of the hose. You can see I've kind of got a hot mess going on here. Perfectly okay. Don't sweat a thing. We need to trim off quite a bit of that extra spray. Take this, pinch it just like you did earlier. Start to slide it down. As you slide it down, working very well if you have a longer hose, take your other hand in the nut and push that back up. Slide some more. Keep a good, nice, tight grip with this hand. Push that nut up and keep going. You can see we've got a whole lot of excess here. Now we're ready to hold this end tight, get the other half of your fitting. Take your fitting and just a couple of drops of your favorite lubricant. Put 1 or 2 on the threads and 1 or 2 on the actual surface that the hose grips onto. Make sure whatever lubricant you're using is going to be compatible with whatever fluid you have running through these lines. This is going to be regular pump gas, so I'm just using whatever air tool oil and other stuff I have laying around. Pretty much anything that's slick will work. Take this fitting, push it into your hose with your olive already on it, and you're going to push that olive all the way up to this edge. Make sure that there's no gap. I'll pull back my braid so you can see what that's supposed to look like. There's a shoulder here, now there's not. As long as your braid is still tight and everything's nice and uniform and it's looking good like this one, we can go ahead, get your scissors, get your pointy end down and start to trim this off. The best thing that I've done is to come back, trim off all of the excess right around the top of the olive. And this is where a very nice quality set of scissors is going to come in clutch. These things cut so smooth and so nice. It makes this job just so easy. Now that we can get a little better visibility, we're going to jump down in here and go about halfway down the olive and then just start trimming. Take your time, go slow, make sure you rotate the hose around, and you're going to want to get that line as even as possible all the way around. Get rid of any of the loose fabric and other detail that might have fell into the threads of your actual hose assembly. Push that braid back up. Check for any long spots like I've got right there. We're looking pretty good. That's just exactly about where you want it. Take the other end of your fitting nut, slide it up. This should go on just with fingers. Get this as far as you can with your fingers until the hose starts turning with the nut and you start to feel some resistance. Now we're going to jump over to the bench vise, show you a couple other things. I've got a set of fitting jaws in my vise. If you have some, great. If you don't, they're dirt cheap on eBay, or you can get them straight from Holley, the same place that this hose and fitting came from. These are a worthwhile investment. I like the ones where you can clamp on the side or the top, either end. Excellent. These are magnetic. I think they are actually the Jegs brand. They work just fine. Get a set. So now we're going to take our nut, drop it down in, and we're going to clamp it in the vise where just a smidgen of that nut is sticking out of the top of the vise. Just a little snug. You don't want to go too tight on this at all. If this fitting is hard to twist into that nut, you're clamping too tight. If you have a line wrench set, great. The only benefit to these really is to keep from marring up your fitting finish. If you don't care, have at it with whatever. Don't think that you need these. Since we're doing a few fittings under the hood of the Nova, I want to keep them looking nice. I don't want to mess up this black anodized finish. We're going to use our aluminum fitting wrench. Again, these are from Jags. One finger. You should be able to turn this right around, no problem. As soon as it starts getting tight, slow down, watch your gap, and if you do everything just right, you should be able to crank it around and stop where all of this lines up nice and flat. That's a great show car finish. If you go a little farther than that and you don't have enough thread gap left, you're going to get stuck with a ridge in between your flat, and it just doesn't look as professional. That's as tight as it needs to be. These things won't leak. I've tested multiple of these lines now, up to 100 pounds of shop air with a fitting on just that tight. No leaks, no problems, works every time. These are also O-ring swivel fittings, so you don't have to worry about clocking these a certain direction. If you're trying to do this with other brands and other different types of hoses, you have to be very mindful of where this fitting is orientated if you don't have a straight on one or both ends. So let's go ahead and pop this out of the vise, put it in the car, and see how she looks. There we go. Couple of P-clamps. This thing's going to look fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and work on getting the rest of these hoses all lined out. I'll catch you in another video. I hope you like this. If you do, hit that thumbs up. If you want to see more content, or if you want to see this 64 Chevy rip on some autocross, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you're really excited, hit that bell. Thanks. Have a great day.